What's up, fight fans? This is Teofimo with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Vasili Lomachenko. Vasili Lomachenko breaks silence as he responds to the decision that he lost. Loma said, I think in the first half he had more rounds than I did, but in the second half I took over as I was much better. I want to go home and review the fight. I can't comment right now much about it. Definitely I'm not agreeing with the scorecards. Those were the words of Vasili Lomachenko. You know, nothing more, nothing less. That's not really Loma's style, to talk a lot. And I think he'll do exactly what he said he's going to do. Go home and review the fight like any person that wants to think rationally would do. Nonetheless, Loma is absolutely right. I agree with him on one thing. The scorecards were absolutely off. They were. You know, I feel that because the scorecards were off, okay, the fight was a lot closer than people thought it was. A lot of people had it a draw. Andre Ward, Terrence Crawford, you know, a lot of other people thought that it was a draw or Loma by 1 round. See, here's the problem. If you fuck with the scorecards, okay, it's going to be one of those things where you're trying to create or control a certain narrative of how a fight went. See, you don't want to deceive certain people. Now, let's just say it was by split decision or majority decision or a lot closer than people thought it was, because even 116 to 112 was off in a lot of people's eyes, right? So in hindsight, it's like, okay, you have a fighter like Teofimo Lopez. A lot of people thought he did enough to win. That may be the case. I'm not saying it's not, but what I am saying, if you give that fighter the perception that he did a lot better than he really did, that's the problem. Okay, that's the counterpunch with that. See, the problem is if a fighter is convinced that, hey, I beat this guy fair and square, unanimous, but you know it wasn't really unanimous, that's the problem. Because if it would have been closer, if it would have been more challenging, which it was challenging from the round 6 on, if that fight would have been closer in the judges' eyes, that would have gave the reality of possibly having a second fight or a rematch. But due to the fact that these scorecards were so off, it may cloud the better judgment of a fighter, which is Teofimo Lopez, may cloud his judgment to the point where he thinks he did a lot better than he really did based on their own perception. And in their case, it's negligence, you know? And if I'm Teofimo Lopez, being as good as I am, as talented, as strong, as hungry, as driven as I was, I wouldn't want somebody with shitty scorecards to dictate what I done in the ring. Did he do enough to win? A lot of people think so. I think it could have went either way, honestly, because the Lopez, he started being pushed once Vasili Lomachenko started to fight. Now, it's not Lopez's fault that Vasili Lomachenko, maybe not, started to fight later like he did. That's not his fault. That wasn't his decision. You know, maybe a punch stopped Loma from fighting like he did. Nonetheless, the fight was a lot closer than what we saw and how the scorecards reflected. And that should be looked at. Okay, and because that should be looked at, we shouldn't look at this as, hey, unanimous, unanimous, unanimous. Because a lot of times it gives you the wrong story. Okay, the story of the fight is Lomachenko fought Lopez. Lopez fought Lomachenko. It was a very rock'em sock'em fight at the last end of that fight. Lopez refused to yield. He got a little frustrated, but at the end of the day, he did what he could do. Okay? And he did what he had to do. Versus Loma did the same. But one thing I wouldn't want someone to lie on my performance. Okay? So back to Loma. You know, he was honest about it. There's no doubt about it. Lopez won the first part of that fight. But the big debate is where was the scoring at the second half of that fight? Why was it that lopsided? It would be a difference if Loma started fighting rounds 10 or 11. That would have reflected those scorecards that those particular judges implemented. I could get that. But not this. These scorecards were for another fight. Bring these scorecards, the right ones, back. But anyway, that's my counterpunch on it. You guys tell me what you think about Lomachenko stating his prediction. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been counterpunched. Peace.